Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, or on Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. If you hear some screaming, middle school brother, what can you do? But today, not really any spoilers, so don't worry about that. It's only like 200 pages anyway, so it doesn't take that long to finish. Today, I have one thing, and one thing only for you, which is Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster. So, big thing about this book, for those of you who are new to the EU may not know, Timothy Zahn may have brought alive, really pushed forward the expanding universe with the Thrawn trilogy. However, the Thrawn trilogy was not the first. And in fact, the granddaddy of the entire expanding universe is due to this book, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Now, as far as I understand it, the story goes that for a long time during the production of Star Wars, only 3 people really had any faith in the project, one of them being Sir Alec McGuinness. But George Lucas himself started to fear that all of his hard work and energy that he put into this was going to flop, that it wasn't going to succeed. But George did want a sequel of some sort. So in case it failed, he wanted a low-budget sequel of some sort. It even is reminiscent to me of Dagobah in this book, because they go to Mimban, which is a very swampy planet, which is obviously something he wanted to do, and that got changed later to Dagobah. But in this novel, you'll notice there's only one ship flight thing in here, and that's because they crash land, so that way they could be stuck in this murky and swampy and foggy location, so that way it could, disguise bad effects or anything, or have, low budget sets. And that was kind of the idea. A low budget film, right? A low budget B sci-fi film. And so that's what it is. Luke and Leia even spend like a week just on this planet, trying to get back home, or trying to get back to where they're trying to go, because they were trying to. Basically, the plot is that they were on their way to a diplomatic meeting, and then Leia's ship had issues that they had to land on Mimban. But this book is pretty famous because it's pretty crazy. We went from the last book publication-wise to the very first book publication-wise. Like, a lot of people, even if they don't really know about the expanded universe, they've heard about Splinter of the Mind's Eye because it was the first. That being said, it's probably Alan Dean Foster's best work in terms of Star Wars. The only other thing I know of him from is Episode 4 novelization, which is basically just Episode 4 with slightly additional dialogue, which I can't really give that to Alan Dean Foster because it's following a script, basically. It's not doing anything like what Matthew Stover would do with Episode 3. And then the other thing is the abysmally boring Approaching Storm that he wrote. And that's when he came back to Star Wars. So this is his only other work that's just expanded material outside the movies, which you could sort of view as Episode 4.5, and then 5, and then Shadows of the Empire would be 5.5, like a movie, kind of, that George has even expressed they would have liked to make. But yeah, overall the story it's fine. I wouldn't put this in like a top 10 or anything, or even probably a top 20. It's not a bad story. It's fun. I enjoyed it. There's these kyber crystals on the planet which enhance your abilities in the Force. Now, of course, is this a problem? Because why don't all Jedi use it? Well, I think it's in some sort of source book or whatnot, but they explain that the kyber crystals are only powerful where they originate from, which is Mimban. So if you leave Mimban, you essentially don't have that power boost anymore. So it's essentially useless once you leave the atmosphere. So it fixes that issue. But Luke does fight Vader again by the end of the book, which It's happened already in the comics. If you've been reading, the old Marvel comics, and I didn't like it there, I don't like it now. But this one has the excuse of Ben's spirit was kind of helping guide Luke, I guess, into surviving that encounter. And that's another thing. It's not Alan Dean Foster's fault. Nobody knew what Episode 5 was going to be, if it even would be a thing. But it is very clear in later material, and especially in Episode 5 itself, that Vader's been very persistent in catching Luke. Now, he is very persistent here, but he just wants to murder them. Maybe he's just so pissed with them, he had a lack of judgment. And after this, he's like, why the fudge did I try to do that? That was stupid of me. Because most of what I've read, he's pursuing Luke not because he wants to kill him, but because he wants to recruit him. He wants to overthrow the Emperor. That's his whole goal. This isn't something that just was spurred on in Episode 5. This has been a thing for a while now, that he's wanted to capture Luke. We don't exactly know why, but it's not to kill him. So that was a little bit weird. Also, we gotta address some of the other stuff. Again, this book was written to be a sequel, in case Episode 4 did horribly. And Harrison Ford was already expressing reluctance to return to Episode 5, or to any other, if they made a sequel. And so, they continued the story. Obviously Luke had a thing for Leia, and Han's out of the picture, so why not try to pursue something? Now, they never officially start dating or anything, but there's a lot of weird things with Luke expressing feelings for Leia, which of course, they don't know. They don't know the truth, so it's not, it would be worse if they knew and were still doing that. But the fact that, regardless, it's not Alan Dean Foster's fault, but we, with our present understanding, know who Luke and Leia are. So to see that sort of interaction is very bizarre, to say the least. There's also just some other weird inconsistencies. Like, in the novel, there's a part where they have to swim across something, but Leia can't swim. What? Would it make more sense for Luke not to swim? Or not be able to, since he lived on Tatooine? I don't know. The main Imperial bad guy, his name is Imperial Grimmel. He was actually a lot of fun. He's no Thrawn or anything, but what I liked about him is he seemed like an everyday blue-collar worker. Like, he's not intelligent in the sense of, an intellectual, of, like, reading a bunch of books and knowing a bunch of stuff. But he can read people. Like, Luke starts telling him this lie about why they're on the planet in the first place, because they're clearly not minors. It's like, your story is plausible, but unlikely, because I noticed as you were talking, you gauged for what I would consider to be acceptable. So I'm thinking a good portion of your story is BS. So I want the truth, and so he's a very decent villain, and what even helped that even more was that you have a very competent, very decent villain, and then Vader shows up, and he craps his pants, just to show the difference. Leia also fights Vader for a second, and he doesn't recognize the Force in her? I don't know. That's a little weird to me. But, yeah, I don't really have spoilers other than Vader shows up at the end. But, like, anybody who knows anything about Splinter the Mind's Eye has seen the cover. So, he's going to show up. But, yeah, overall, it's a decent... It definitely feels like a B movie. Like something, you'd watch from old sci-fi, back when all they made was B movies. So, a fun time, though. Now, I usually wouldn't mention this, but I think I prefer the comic. I also read the comic because I hear it smooth over a few things. The Luke and Leia stuff is heavily dialed back. Of course, it does pretty much retain, like, line for line stuff from the book, which is good. They did change a very important scene, though. The scene on the water where Luke swims, they changed it. They make a makeshift boat so that way Leia and Luke can get across, which that makes far more sense than Luke just being able to swim and Leia can't. So I think I would say in this instance that I prefer the comic. Don't know if I'd say that for Shadows of the Empire or anything, but I think I mean that for this one. I'm not that the novel's bad. The novel's written fine. Um, you're getting the same story either way, but I think it has the benefit of having visual aid and the fact that it fixes some of those inconsistencies within the novel, which couldn't be helped at the time it was written. But that's pretty much it, guys. I didn't have too much to say about it, but it's a really interesting piece of the Star Wars expanded universe, and definitely worth checking out at least once. So until next time, guys, with Razor's Edge, a Leia focused story. But until then, the Force be with you.